In the silence of an Egyptian monastery, where faith was expressed through prayers and penance, a woman lived unnoticed, the target of scorn and ridicule. Her name was Isidora, a nun whose true greatness remained hidden beneath a veil of humility and apparent madness. Unlike her companions, she did not seek honors or recognition. Instead, she chose to conceal herself behind a mask of insignificance, dedicating herself entirely to service and prayer. Her story, nearly lost to time, is a testament to unshakable faith and a heart that understood the true meaning of Christian humility. Today's topic is Saint Isadora. Here are 9 fascinating facts about her. 9. She pretended to be mad to get closer to God. From an early age, Isidora understood that the path to holiness was not in displaying visible virtues, but in extreme humility and complete detachment from the world. Inspired by Christian teachings, she chose a radical path, assuming the appearance of an insane person, despised in the eyes of men but precious before God. In a time when sainthood was often recognized through extraordinary acts like miracles and spiritual leadership, Isidora chose a different form of devotion: madness for Christ. This concept, common in early Christianity, referred to those who, out of love for God, renounced not only material possessions but also their own dignity in the eyes of the world. She began acting in a way that made the other nuns believe she was mentally unstable or incapable. This behavior led to her being treated with contempt, receiving the most humiliating tasks in the convent. Her companions saw her as a burden, someone unworthy of respect. However, for Isidora, every insult was an opportunity to draw closer to God, offering her patience and suffering as a silent sacrifice. If you are not yet subscribed to the channel, subscribe now so you don't miss any fascinating facts about the saints. 8. Saint Isidora's life in the Egyptian monastery. Isidora lived in a convent in Egypt, possibly in the 4th or 5th century. Unlike the other nuns, who followed monastic rules and wore traditional habits, she refused any form of comfort or distinction. Instead of wearing the black veil of religious women, she covered her head with a simple rag, a gesture that reinforced her intention to remain invisible and devoid of any status. Within the monastery, she was treated as the lowest among the sisters. Without complaint, she accepted the hardest tasks, cleaning the corridors, washing dishes, and handling the heaviest chores. While the other nuns prayed together and participated in the convent's spiritual activities, Isidora was often left out, not invited to fully take part. Yet, she never showed sadness or resentment, remaining serene and obedient. The scorn she endured did not shake her because her soul was focused solely on God. Even when she was ridiculed or ignored, she continued to serve everyone with patience and love. Her humility was so profound that for years, no one recognized her sanctity. To the nuns, she was just a strange and insignificant woman. To God, she was a precious soul, drawing ever closer to spiritual perfection. 7. She wore a cloth as a veil. In the Egyptian monastery where she lived, all the nuns followed a standard dress code, wearing habits appropriate for religious life. However, Isidora rejected any form of distinction, even in the way she dressed. While the other sisters wore a traditional veil as a sign of their consecration, Isidora opted for a simple worn-out piece of cloth, carelessly tied over her hair. This small detail made her even more despised by the other nuns. To them, the veil was a symbol of belonging to monastic life, a sign of discipline and adherence to the convent's rules. The fact that Isidora refused to wear a proper veil was seen as a sign of laziness, negligence, or even madness. Some nuns believed she was unaware of her actions. Others thought her untidy appearance was an affront to the monastery's order. However, Isidora knew exactly what she was doing. Her goal was to rid herself of any outward sign of status or respect. She did not want to be recognized as an exemplary religious figure or even seen as a worthy disciple. Her choice reflected a deep desire for humility, a complete abandonment of pride and vanity. While the other nuns carefully adjusted their veils, Isidora hid beneath an old piece of cloth, as if she wanted to disappear from the world's view and remain visible only to God. Leave your prayer requests in the comments so that Saint Isadora may intercede for them before God. 6. She served everyone with patience. Despite being despised and ridiculed, Isidora never repaid evil with evil. On the contrary, she accepted all the hardest and most thankless tasks in the monastery with patience and dedication. Her hands were always busy with work, sweeping the corridors, washing dishes, cooking, cleaning the nuns' quarters, and performing any other duty assigned to her. What was most remarkable was her attitude toward mistreatment. If someone spoke harshly to her, she simply bowed her head and obeyed. If they humiliated her or mocked her appearance, she remained silent, never defending herself. If they gave her difficult and unfair tasks, she carried them out without complaint. To Isidora, every one of these situations was an opportunity to practice patience and love for others. Some nuns treated her harshly, believing she was truly foolish or mentally incapable. They even took pleasure in mocking her humility and the way she accepted any task. But Isidora never held a grudge. On the contrary, she served everyone with kindness, as if she were serving Christ himself. Her obedience was not born out of fear or weakness, but from a profound understanding of the spiritual path she had chosen to follow. 5. She was discovered by a hermit. For years, Isidora lived this way, hiding her holiness under a despised appearance. But her soul was so pure that God decided to reveal her to the world. One day, a monk named Pitirim, who lived as a hermit in the desert, had a divine vision. In this vision, God showed him that among all the nuns in the monastery, the holiest of them was not the most learned, the most disciplined, or the one who fasted the most severely. Instead, it was the most despised woman in the convent, Isidora. Intrigued, Pitirim decided to visit the monastery in person to see this woman with his own eyes. When he arrived, he asked to meet all the nuns and observed each one. However, none seemed to match the description from his vision. Only when he saw Isidora, dressed poorly, with the old cloth on her head, and occupied with some humble task, did he immediately know it was her. As he approached, Pitirim knelt before Isidora and asked for her blessing. The other nuns were astonished and outraged. How could a hermit monk, known for his wisdom, bow before the most insignificant woman in the monastery? To them, it was absurd. Then Pitirim revealed what God had shown him. Isidora was the true saint among them. Her humility, patience, and silent service had made her great in the eyes of God. Ashamed, the nuns realized the mistake they had made in despising her and began to ask for her forgiveness. For after being recognized, she fled. When the truth about her holiness was revealed by the hermit Pitirim, Isidora's life suddenly changed. For years, she had managed to hide under a simple and despised appearance, but now all the nuns in the monastery began to see her differently. Once the object of mockery and scorn, she was now revered. The sisters, who had once treated her as a burden, started to admire her and ask for her forgiveness. Many wanted to hear her words, learn from her example, and even seek her spiritual guidance. However, Isidora did not want this attention. To her, true holiness was found in serving silently, unnoticed. The recognition from the other nuns was a burden she did not wish to carry. Without saying a word, Isidora made a radical decision. She fled the monastery and disappeared. Her whereabouts were never discovered. Some stories suggest that she went to live in the desert, following the example of hermits who sought a life of prayer and solitude. Other versions claim that she found refuge in another monastery, where she could continue her humble life without being recognized. Whatever her chosen path, one thing is certain: Isidora preferred anonymity over fame, once again demonstrating her devotion to extreme humility. 3. Inspiration for monasticism. Saint Isadora became one of the greatest sources of inspiration for those seeking to live a monastic life of humility and detachment from the world. Her story reflects the essential principles of monasticism: the pursuit of simplicity, the rejection of vanity, and total dedication to God. In monasticism, a life devoted to prayer, work, and humility is seen as a path to holiness. Saint Isadora exemplified all these aspects in a radical way. By choosing to live in complete submission to service, even while being rejected by her companions, she embodied the true spirit of monasticism. For her, rejecting worldly glory and striving for inner purity was more important than any honor or human recognition. Monks and Christians from various spiritual traditions find in Isidora an example of how to live the gospel authentically. Her behavior and life choices show that true holiness is not about publicly displaying one's virtues, but about how one acts in silence and discretion. She is a reference for those who, like many monks, seek to find God in everyday tasks and in serving others, without desiring rewards or applause. 2. Her feast day. Saint Isidora's feast day, May 1st, holds significant meaning in the Christian calendar. May 1st is traditionally a day of celebration for labor and dedication to service. The choice of this date to honor Saint Isadora reflects the idea that humble work, done with devotion, is a form of service to God. On this day, believers and monks can reflect on Saint Isidora's life and the values of humility and unconditional service. 1. No records exist about her death. Saint Isidora's life was marked by extreme discretion and humility, and her death followed the same pattern. There are no historical records or reliable documents describing her death, nor is there any information about where she was buried. This reinforces the idea that her holiness was entirely focused on what was invisible to human eyes, devoted solely to God. And that brings us to the end of another fascinating story. Don't forget to leave a comment about which saint's curiosities you would like to see on the channel. See you in the next story.